Hello everyone. If you're new here, my name is Colleen and I'm pleased that you're here with me today. I today am making an easy, lazy meal that could be used as a main for a lunch. It could be used as a side for dinner. That would be quite substantial. You wouldn't need a whole lot to add to it. Maybe some vegetables and salad. But at any rate, I'm going to make you our family version of a cowboy casserole. So do come back right after this. I'll gather up the ingredients and I will see you in a moment. To get this recipe started, I am going to need about, I'm going to say 5 slices of thick cut bacon. Any bacon would work. It doesn't have to be a special brand or a special kind. It doesn't need to be thick cut bacon either. It just happens to be what I have on hand at the moment. And at the price of bacon today, you get whatever is on sale. It just happened to be this one. So I am going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slices and put the rest aside. Now I'm going to chop these pieces of bacon into smaller chunks. And any of these really large pieces of fat that I see, the really large ones, not all of them, just the ones that are really big chunks, I am going to trim that up a little bit because, yeah, I do fry the bacon pretty good, but I definitely don't want to end up with a big piece of bacon fat in my mouth. Okay, I'm just going to chop them into chunky pieces, and I am going to get this on the stove into this frying pan. I'm going to pull the bits of bacon apart and get this onto the stove. So I know that there are different recipes for cowboy casserole. Some of them include ground beef, and you could definitely make it that way. I'm not saying you shouldn't. And most of them are made with canned beans as well. Today I'm using just canned beans I bought from the store because I happen to be out of my home canned beans. I'll try and remember to link below in the description notes my video where I make home canned baked beans, and I think that you would enjoy them. We usually have them on hand. I really like to get into making them for the summertime because then it's so handy when you want to have a meal. You just open a jar of baked beans and you're set. And there couldn't be anything easier. Making them is super duper easy, and it certainly is a lot more affordable than buying them by the can. So I'm going to rinse my hands, pop this on the stove, and then come back and we'll chop up this onion and get it ready to go in the pan as well. Okay, the pan is on the stove. I've turned it up to high. Just going to reach back here and get the can opener. These are just Bush's home-style tomato sauce with bacon and brown sugar. They could be any kind of baked bean. Just trying to pick out one that, you know, a little bit of the quality of it that'll hold up to a little bit of extra time. I'm just going to grab a spoon. And one of the things that I do want to do is I'm going to remove this single piece of bacon that's included here on the top of the can, because I'm not that fond of the bacon that comes in the can. It is kind of interesting that they say, that they do warn you on the label where it says clearly tomato sauce with bacon and brown sugar. And this is the bacon. So there's not much to worry about there. But still, it's not something that I want to find. Back to the sink. It's not something that I want to find in my baked beans or in my Cowboy Casserole. Now these beans hold up pretty well in the extra warming process here. And in it goes. I'm just using a casserole dish. If you had a cast iron frying pan, that would be good, because you could cook your bacon, drain off the extra fat, and once you've done that, you'd be able to put all of the ingredients right back into the pan, and it would go into the oven. Which reminds me, I need to get my oven set, because I may have the slowest heating oven on the planet. Maybe not, that's probably an exaggeration. So this would be a really simple dish to take with you for a potluck in the summertime or anytime. I'm just going to set the oven to 415 degrees. And I also grabbed this while I was away so that I can stir this big bunch. Now, I'm going to chop up this onion. I'm not even going to clean this board because I need to get my knives sharpened too. They are very dull at the moment. Because all of the stuff's going into the same dish, I don't feel like I need to wash the juice of the beans off of the board before I cut the onion on there. You could if you like. Your kitchen, right? Your rules. Now I am going to chop this onion probably about, I'm probably looking for 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of onion. And I'm going to chop it into chunks. More like smaller pieces, I guess. Certainly I'm not going to worry about it being diced, because this is a very rustic dish. I'm sure that the cowboys of old did not take the time to perfectly dice up their onion. Okay, I'm going to go add this onion to that frying pan, and I'm going to give it a stir, and then I'll be back and we'll get started on the rest. Now I've just turned that burner down. I had it on high, but I've turned it down because I want to render some of that fat out, and I had it on high and it was sticking to the pan. So I turned it down, added the onions, and give it a good stir, and then turned it down. I'm going to get rid of this because I don't need that anymore. And I want to get my work surface cleaned up here. And I'm going to bring this forward. And I've got a container of fancy molasses. And I'm going to add about 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup. Depends on whether or not you like molasses. We happen to love molasses in our beans. And I need another spoon. Now, to stop the molasses from sticking so much to your cup, you could definitely give it a spray with some cooking spray before. Give the cup a spray with cooking spray before you got started. And I won't say it'll fall out, but it will certainly come out fairly simple. Now, I am going to give this a stir, and I am going to take this, I don't know if you can see it, but it went from being light brown to fairly dark brown. And I am going to put this in the microwave oven for 5 minutes on high. Now I've just cleaned up this counter. I wanted to have it nice and clean for the next part of this process, which doesn't take long, but we'll need a nice clean dry counter for it. Set that over there. Okay, now I'm going to add biscuits to the top of this recipe, and I'm going to use my homemade biscuits, and so I'll gather up the ingredients for the biscuits and I will be right back. Now I've also made this biscuit recipe before. It could probably be the best biscuit recipe you would ever have. So I will try and remember to link it down below, just in case I get talking and forget to tell you all the ingredients, but I'll try and remember. So 2 cups of flour, and you saw how I treated the flour, like they taught us in home ec, where you scoop and then you cut it off, so that I know that I'm getting basically the same result every single time. You need a tablespoon of baking powder, and I need a half a teaspoon of salt. As I said, this is like a lazy and fast way to put something in front of your family or make it part of another meal. I'm going to sweeten these biscuits up a little bit with 2.5 tablespoons of honey. And I don't mind if it measures a little bigger. And I try to get it out of there. It's very sticky. This is a local honey, wildflower honey from the Rocky Mountains of British Columbia, Canada. And they do have a website, rockymountainhoneyfarm@gmail.com. Oh, maybe not a website, but they do have an email address. I could share more information for you. I'm not sure if they ship or not. We buy it at the local farmer's market. So I don't need this anymore. That was 2.5 tablespoons of honey. And now I am going to get I'm just going to take a moment and stir my bacon. And I've shut that off now because I cleaned it. I need 1/3 of a cup of room temperature butter. And I have tried it with both cold butter and room temperature seems to always work good. So again, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. We're going to go with what works. When I cook in my kitchen for myself, I want you to know that I definitely do scrape out every last morsel. When I'm doing it for videos, I tend to hurry and not do that because I'm trying to keep the videos within a reasonable amount of time. Now, I'm going to give this a stir. I've got honey everywhere by now. That wasn't very good planning on my part. I'm going to just cut this butter in and cut it in really good. You could use a pastry cutter here. In fact, I think I will get the pastry cutter out. Certainly if I can find the pastry cutter, I'll get it out. See seems like it's fairly organized in there. Maybe it's just my old eyes. I'm just going to cut this butter up. Now, this recipe for these biscuits goes very quickly, and it has never failed me, not one time that I can think of. As long as I remember to put all the ingredients in there, I don't know. And you were using fresh baking powder. That could make a difference, I guess. There. Now you want this to look like a little bit ragged. I think I can show it to you. You're far away today. And the last ingredient I need in there is 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk. Now I have buttermilk, but if it's not something that you buy regularly, I buy buttermilk because I like to drink it. Seems to be good for digestion. So 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, don't fret. Use 3/4 of a cup of milk and sour it with a tablespoon of either vinegar or lemon juice. And then let it sit on your counter for about 10 minutes before you use it. And it'll give you the same consistency and the same amount of acidity that you would find in buttermilk. So in it goes. Get rid of that. And then I'm just going to use my trusty knife, because that's how I've always done it. And I am going to stir this until it pretty much is all the flour is gone. And that's all. You don't want to stir it beyond that. But you also don't want to roll it out onto the board until you have almost all the dry ingredients moistened up, because it means that you're going to play with it a lot more. And this is pretty good. So I am just going to lay down a little bit of flour on my bench here. And I am going to turn this out. If there's a little bit left in there and it's dry, don't turn that out. Don't fret about it. You're going to have to just leave it alone. Now, a little bit more flour for the top of this. I'm just bringing it together. We don't want to be friends. I don't want to knead it. I just want to bring it together really well. So a few spins around, and then I'm going to flatten it out. Now, normally I flatten my dough out to about, maybe an inch, but for this recipe I'm going to go to a 1/2 to a 3/4 inch, somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm just going to use a lid off of one of my canning jars. Normally I use a glass, and I make them smaller around because we don't need them that big if we're just having a biscuit on the side. Just going to spray that a little. And I am going to cut these biscuits out and get them ready for the next step. Now these don't have to be perfect, but there's something to be said for taking pride in your food. And my mom taught me biscuits a long time ago, and she, I think every one of my forebears, maybe that's food memory for me. All of my ancestors have provided me with the skills to do these things. Okay, I just brought all of the little tattery bits together and cut out another biscuit. Although these ones that you put together at the end, they're never as tender as those first few that you cut out before you mix everything together. There we go. Now I think I have too many biscuits. I'll have to put the additional ones on a pan maybe. I'm going to just take my towel, get my beans out of the microwave. There we go, they're looking pretty rich and brown. I'm going to grab the bacon and onions off the stove. And I have cooked them very well through. And I didn't add any extra fat. So any fat that's in there I'm going to include. Because remember we cut all the big pieces off and it was kind of ugly looking. And I am just going to stir this in until it's well mixed about. And then I'm going to take these biscuits and I am going to lay them on top here. And I think I can get 5 on here. And I'm putting this into a 415 degree oven just until the biscuits are cooked now, because everything else is heated through. This doesn't need a long time in the oven, although you certainly could, before you put the biscuits on, put everything into the oven and cook it together for a while. That would be good too. Now, I'm going to let you know how long I've left them in the oven for. Ooh, I've got these 2 extras here. I'm going to put them on a pan and get them in there as well. Now, if you're cooking those biscuits all by themselves in the oven, you're going to cook them for 13 minutes. Exactly. Not any extra time. 13 minutes. But on top of the beans, they do take a little extra time. And I'll let you know what that is after everything comes out of the oven. I'll see you then. Have a look at that. This is the Cowboy Casserole as it's come out of the oven. The tops are a little darker than I would like them to be, but that was because I was cooking the whole casserole at 415 degrees. And so it does make it a little browner, but you need to be able to cook the top and make sure that the bottoms are being cooked as well. So I kept this in the oven at 415 degrees for a total of 18 minutes in order to get the biscuits to be cooked all the way through. And I'm going to just put some out in a bowl here so you can have a look at what that looks like. So I just used a flipper to take the first one out. And now I am going to just serve some out with a soup ladle into my serving bowl. Not very good at this handheld camera action. And then I'm going to slide the biscuit back onto the top. And that's what Cowboy Casserole looks like at our house. I hope that you've enjoyed today's lazy, easy recipe, and if you have, that you'll consider subscribing if you haven't already. Give it a thumbs up. I look forward to your comments below. And as always, the recipe will be in the description box, although the recipe for the beans won't be. As you can see, it's something that's easy to throw together from memory. But I will put links to a couple of other recipes, including the biscuits, in the comment section below this video. And until next time, folks, take care, everybody, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.